Mark's gospel begins with a sense of immediacy, of urgency. There are no infancy narratives, no discussion of Jesus' life as a child like we find in Matthew and Luke's accounts. Unlike the theological reflection on the Word made flesh that begins John's gospel, in Mark, we see Jesus baptized, call his first disciple, and then we're off to the races. He immediately begins to work signs and wonders. Interestingly, none of the gospel called Jesus' healings miracles. Miracle is a more contemporary word. It's our word for an inexplicable phenomena that appear to arise from a source other than ourselves. But that's a topic for another time. Today's gospel has three distinct but connected episodes: the healing of Simon Peter's mother-in-law, the crowds gathering at the doors seeking healing, and the driving out of demons throughout the whole of Galilee. Today we're going to focus on the first part of this gospel. It opens with Jesus and his followers leaving the synagogue. In the children's liturgy of the word, it's called the meeting place, implying that they were there on the Sabbath. They enter Simon's house, and immediately, Jesus was brought to his ailing mother-in-law. The fact that she was living in the house of her son-in-law suggests that she must have had no living family members of her own, a husband or sons or members of her birth family to take care of her. In the Middle Eastern world of this time, this would have been a fate worse than any illness, even worse than death. As often happens in Jesus' ministry, the challenge is more than the woman's fever. In this healing of Simon's mother-in-law, we gain insight into the mission of Jesus, the free man who cares nothing for the taboos that prohibited the touching of a woman, not one's wife, and especially on a Sabbath. In the synagogue, Jesus healed the man possessed by the unclean spirit. And here we see that he makes no distinction between male and female, even though holding the hand of a sick woman could earn him the accusation of ritual uncleanliness. Compassion has a more urgent hold of him. Without speaking a word, the text tells us he helped her up. The Greek word that is used is frequently found in resurrection accounts. Finally, the episode ends with the woman waiting on them. But again, a word that is used has a theological meaning, diakoneo, or ministering to them. It signifies more than the traditional woman's domestic work. It connotes ministry or service within the community. The story affirms Jesus' unique authority over the powers of death. And then the one released from the power of death goes on to minister to others. In this gospel passage, we see Jesus portrayed as a folk healer, a spirit-filled prophet and teacher who has power over unclean spirits and a wide variety of illnesses. But not only does Jesus heal people of their physical infirmity, even more importantly, he restores sick persons to their proper status, role, and place within the community. Lepers, declared cleansed, take their place again within society. The dead, restored to life, return to membership within their family. Simon's mother-in-law is strong enough to resume her normal function within the home. Jesus has not only restored her physical health, but perhaps even more importantly, has restored meaning to her life. Based on our personal history and the total history of the human race, we can conclude that life cannot, should not, and will not be pain-free. Pain is part of the fabric of human existence, both individually and socially. And to imagine anything less is to project a false image of what it truly means to be human. Recognizing this, we should take time to consider what our expectations are about the inevitability of pain in human life. Knowing that pain has or will find its way to us, how are we prepared to face it? I think there are two words that generally we use interchangeably, but which I believe have radically different meanings. that lead us in two very different and disparate expectations regarding pain in our life. These words are curing and healing. Both connote the result of pain, suffering, coming to an end, but I think the terms, in fact, are quite different. The first word, curing, leads us to the expectation of the elimination of pain and its consequences. Technically, curing means the solving of some medical problem, perhaps surgically removing an appendix or a tumor, setting a broken bone, or regulating someone's diabetes or high blood pressure. Through medical means, the patient is treated and put back on the road to recovery, hopefully being as healthy after the procedure as he or she was before. Questions often asked of their doctors include, when can I get back to playing tennis? Or when can I drive again? Or when can I eat pizza again? In other words, when will my life be the same as it was before? This is what we commonly regard as curing. The other word, healing, technically means restoring meaning to life. The goal in healing does not promise a return to the way things were before the accident, before the illness, or whatever health crisis was brought on. But rather the goal is to reach a new level of wholeness, an integration of the event into ourselves, even if, and perhaps especially, if the brokenness that we have endured cannot be corrected. I have a friend who decades ago was hit by a car while riding a motorcycle. Since then, he is a quadriplegic, paralyzed from the shoulders down and confined to a wheelchair. Every 4th of July, the anniversary of his accident, he has a huge cookout with over 200 guests to celebrate the fact that he is alive. He has a life with his wife and his son, and he has resumed his law practice. He is as clever, articulate, and engaging as he was before, and he serves as an inspiration for all those who know him, as a symbol of hope and trust in life and in love. Has he been cured? Of course not, and he may never be, but he has certainly been healed. His life has meaning and depth and richness, and he has a greater capacity than ever before to appreciate and celebrate what life gives him. Sisters and brothers, we are living now in a world surrounded by pain. The physical pain of those suffering from the global pandemic and all of its consequences, the psychological pain of those suffering from depression and anxiety because of unemployment or lack of accessibility for adequate health care, the emotional pain of almost 500,000 families in our country alone suffering the loss of a loved one. Like the disciples in Mark's gospel who see Jesus healing the sick and casting out demons, and who will soon be sent off to do the same, we, who have experienced God's tender mercy and love, will be sent forth also to do the same. May we all address the suffering of our time and our world with the hope and the healing that the presence of Christ makes possible.